15 unique bourbon distilleries within 45 miles of downtown. That's what you can expect in Lexington, Kentucky, the bourbon lover's ultimate playground. Lexington is the perfect hub for your bourbon-infused vacation, and VisitLEX will help you create the perfect itinerary along the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. For more information, go to visitlex.com, that's VisitLEX.com, and discover all the ways to enjoy the horse and, in our opinion, bourbon, capital of the world.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, it's my good friend, my buddy, my pal, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing really great. I feel like it has been, how long has it been since we've been back in the Bourbon Life Studios?
It's been a long time, Matt. It's been too long. I hate to say that, but you know, just things happen. It's been a weird summer. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
but, hey,
it has been a weird one, but we're back. It seems like now that everything's opening back up, people are getting the itch to travel, take those vacations they haven't been able to take all year. And so
that's right.
We've had a little trouble getting some guests on, but man, do we have a ripper coming tonight, right?
That's right. I'm excited about this one, man. This is a good time. This is going to be I don't want to say a rebeat. It's going to be a revisit of what we've done before. So I'm really excited about that. So, and I do have to say, you know, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast. Tonight we are presented by VisitLEX, so we appreciate their support. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a perfect opportunity to have them as a presenting sponsor because what we're going to talk about tonight has a lot to do with our local area here. So with that said, Matt, do you want to tell everybody who we have with us?
I would love to. So we are in the month of September here in 2022. And September is Bourbon Heritage Month here in Kentucky. And what
that it is.
Yeah. What better way to celebrate a month long with lots of festivals and lots of different releases of allocated bourbons, stuff that Mark and I will never be able to try. But we do have great festivals coming up as well. So it's not just about releases of bourbon, but more about celebrating bourbon. And one of the great ones that we really love is Bourbon on the Banks. And so we had him on last year, and we're bringing him back. We have a couple of the board members, Rene and Amzie Wenning, and also the festival director, Diane Strong of Bourbon on the Banks. Welcome back to the Bourbon Life Podcast, everybody.
Yes, glad to be here.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. I don't want to say it's like short notice, but it feels like we kind of got this one together on short notice. And I appreciate that because I know the Bourbon on the Banks, the festival is coming up within a couple of weeks. But we appreciate you all joining us to share everything about the festival and what's going on. You guys continue to do a great job with that. So we're just, we're really happy and excited to have you guys back and to be a part of that. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome. So, hey, before we start having a conversation, we've got a couple of things poured up here. And these pours that we have tonight are from the Frankfort Bourbon Society, I believe. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
All three are
great
barrel picks from the Frankfort Bourbon Society.
Yeah, which we appreciate, and we appreciate you sharing those with us. Rene, thank you so much for getting those. And Diane, thank you so much because Diane, you came over to Lexington today and met with me and dropped those off. So I really appreciate you doing that. So we had those to share tonight. So the first one we're gonna drink is the Wilderness Trail Rye Single Barrel, and that one it's kind of funny because that was like what was it, 50.49?
50,
is that right?
50.48.
50.48. Yeah.
Yeah. This is different for us. We never kick it off with a rye, do we?
No, we never do, Matt. Ever. We never,
never once
do.
ever. But we're doing it.
Matt, I know Matt's excited about that because Matt is a rye guy. There's no There's no doubt about that. So we're excited to share that. And this one, if it's a standard Wilderness Trail rye, I think it's 56% rye, 33% corn, and 11% malted barley. I believe that's their mash bill on their ryes. Matt, you and I went down and picked a barrel. I think it was a few years ago. We got to go down there and participate, and Matt was running through the warehouse with a drill in his hand and drilling a lot of barrels and sampling a lot of bourbon. So we had a lot of fun with that. So, but yeah, we're looking forward to this one. So let's talk about what you get on the nose. Matt, what do you pick up on this one, man?
Oh, all right. Here, well, let's let somebody else talk a little bit through this here. I haven't had a good chance to get in on it, so and we're talking too much about Matt. We've got great guests. We don't need to hear about Matt.
We do. That's right.
Yeah. So let's hear Rene, a little bit from you all about this.
Rene, I see you're working it over there, Rene. So tell me.
I am. I can definitely pick up the spice in it. I can tell that it's a rye versus a bourbon.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a little clogged up, so I'm not getting much else. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to turn it over to our expert noser. And you can't see on the video. I mean, this is not a video, so you can't see how expert Amzie's nose really is.
Yeah, and Amzie's got the beard, man. I'm digging. Did you have that? I don't remember you having it last year. Did you have that?
I've had a beard for a long time. It kind of got out of control in its current state during COVID. So, yeah, it may have been shorter, longer. It's kind of gone in between. So, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah. Rene, I was afraid you were
like
going to say that too. I'm a little stopped up. I mowed the grass yesterday. I smoked 3 racks of ribs today on the smoker. So, but no,
I was going to say today's Labor Day, and I'm sorry. When we planned this, I did not realize that this was Labor Day, and I'm so sorry that we did that to all of you all. So, but I appreciate you joining us tonight. So. Go ahead. See, I'm sorry.
No, this was a good excuse. I just finished putting up a play set for our daughter that took me about a week. So I finished it yesterday, but I was hoping if needed, this would be a good excuse to stop working on that thing. So
nice.
I think I agree, Rene. I get the rye on this, the rye spice a little bit. Something I get sometimes at Wilderness Trail, you occasionally come across a barrel there that's got a ton of vanilla. I get a little bit of that here. Not as much as you do on some of the others. Little caramel to it as well. But
yeah.
So
which is kind of funny,
as
but
up as I am, those may all be pretty profound smells.
But that makes sense because this is only 56% rye. So it's not a it's not a 95.5, or it's not even like a New York rye. You're not talking 70% rye. You're talking a low percentage of rye, just a little bit over. It has to be 51%, obviously, but they're just a little bit over that. So I would anticipate you're going to pick up probably some notes because it's 33% corn. So you're going to pick up some notes that are similar to a bourbon. Which that makes a lot of sense when you said that. So, Matt, what about you, man? You've known it for a while.
All right.
What do you think?
All right. So when I first poured it up, before I even had a chance to really get in there and start sniffing around and nosing on it, I could smell like really great grain. It smelled like a distillery. It smelled like grain spirits coming off the still. It just had that really nice, inviting, fresh, distilled type aroma to it. Just a big old bouquet of that. And then as I started really working it over, it had some zest of like lime, a little bit of honey right up front on the nose with it, some of that rye spice coming through as well. But now as it's sitting in here, call me crazy on this one, but I'm getting
crazy, man.
I am crazy. I'm feeling crazy tonight, but I get a lot of juicy red fruit, a lot of berries.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Just this really bright, juicy, like playful fruit note on it.
Very, very nice. Diane, you want to jump in and share anything on that?
Well, I would say cinnamon. I definitely have some cinnamon. And then on the sweeter side, I guess I was going to say vanilla, but that's so generic. So I dug deep and I actually can smell some coconut.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it and that happens sometimes with a rye or bourbon, and this is, like I said, it's very close to the same kind of bourbon mash bill, the barrels. Um, Depending on what they did in terms of toasting and the way they prepared the barrels, I mean, you can get that coconut flavor off of that. So that's not a surprise at all. Matt, I agree with you, man. They're just like that citrus note, some red fruit as well. But yeah, it's really coming through. I really, really like that. So very nice, man. So very nice on the nose. We'll get to the palate here in a few minutes, but let's jump back, talk about you guys. So who wants to go first and tell us about who you are? We did this. You guys have been on the show before and we appreciate that, but I'd like to go back and revisit, because it was over a year ago. And I think it'd be great to go back and kind of revisit and talk about who each of you are and how you got involved with Bourbon on the Banks and the whole situation. So who wants to go first?
All right, Rene, it's on you.
Well, okay, I'll give you a little history. 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I'm losing count. Frankfort really had not taken advantage of its bourbon history in a concerted, organized fashion. Of course, we got Buffalo Trace here and had a lot of spin-off tourism from Buffalo Trace. But there was really nothing for anybody to do downtown necessarily related to bourbon. And so we decided as a community through an organization called Downtown Frankfort, Inc. to do something about that and establish some bourbon tourism markers. So I'm not going to bore you with all the things that happened through the years, but now you can't go through downtown Frankfort with, and I'm sure some residents have probably said enough is enough, but you're going to know we're a bourbon town, including several establishments that are whiskey or bourbon related establishments, either food or food and drink. And so one of the things that came out of that was a event called Bourbonanza, and another event that was started was called Bourbon on the Banks, and that wasn't necessarily started by that original group I was talking about. But those two events have been merged, and brought fast forward after COVID and everything to the Bourbon on the Banks that we have now, which has been really a huge success for the community because it has done what we want to do, which is draw visitors from really all across the United States. And Diane's got the figures on that, on what we're seeing. So I'll let y'all ask some questions, but it's just a recognition that we need to adopt our bourbon heritage and own it. And as a community, we have, and Bourbon on the Banks is one of the results of that.
So Rene, you're with the Frankfort Bourbon Society as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Amzie is our president. I'm the treasurer. I'm the one that loses all the money.
So, all right. So Amzie, tell us about yourself, and then tell us a little bit about the Frankfort Bourbon Society too, and how that got involved with creating the Bourbon on the Banks.
Sure. Yeah. My wife and we moved here to Frankfort about 12 and a half years ago. I didn't really, I like whiskey some. I probably drank more scotch. I soon realized living in Kentucky, I was going to have to start drinking more bourbon. And so I did. Honestly, I just really enjoyed it. Met a lot of people in Frankfort at a place called Capitol Cellars. And, then eventually the Frankfort Bourbon Society was founded. I joined that, became a board member shortly thereafter. And that's it. And I think it makes sense that there's some overlap between Bourbon on the Banks Festival and Frankfort Bourbon Society, being in the same town.
Sure.
A lot of our members are going to be very interested in this festival. But Frankfort Bourbon Society, we I don't know, Rene, what do we have? 170 something members now, I think.
Oh
Ballpark.
no, we're over 230.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So things are looking up. So now when I try and get Rene to write those checks, then hopefully we have the money there for him. But we do a lot of events. If we run into someone related to anything in the bourbon industry, hey, do you want to come talk to our group? If we can get a distiller, a brand rep, or someone to come, and we've had a lot of experience and luck with that. Something else we do are barrel picks, so we're trying our barrel picks today. And one thing I like about the Frankfort Bourbon Society is that we don't have a tasting panel like I think some bourbon groups do. And so really any of our members can have the opportunity to go on a barrel pick. Now, a lot of the distilleries have decreased the number that can go on those picks since COVID. But usually we used to send 2 board members. Now we'll send 1 board member since the groups are smaller. And other than that, we send out an email. Our members can sign up. They're put in a randomizer drawing, and they have a chance to go and help select a barrel, which a barrel pick is a great, sometimes once in a lifetime experience for someone. Sure. And then once a member has been selected, they're sort of excluded until everyone else has had a chance to sign up and go on one. So that's something I like. We just have a good group of people. I think our members, being in a smaller town like Frankfort, know each other, enjoy each other's company, and enjoy getting together and enjoying bourbon together.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's great. And like you said, if you've never been on a barrel pick, it's something that's such a fun experience. Matt and I have been fortunate enough to do several, and we've definitely enjoyed each one that we've had the opportunity to go on. So that's cool that you give your members the opportunity to do that. So that's great. All right, Diane. So what about you? Tell us about your background, how you got involved with the Bourbon on the Banks.
Well, I have been in Frankfort for 5 years now. And when the Bourbon on the Banks was initially brought about, I was asked to be in charge of the Bourbon Street on Broadway. Just basically, I was asked to be in charge of the free community event. And so I decided to go wild with it and created it's circus, it's performers, it's EDM music, it's fire. It's just all this event that downtown Frankfort is not used to, and it went off really well. And Wendy Kobler, who created this event initially, she took on a different job and left, I think, the day after the event in 2019. And from that point on, we didn't really have much of a leadership. We kind of experimented with a few things. Then I was asked to go ahead and be the event director. So that's how I stumbled upon this, because I pulled off the one event pretty well. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so last year was my first full year being event director. And we had a great year last year. We increased these numbers used to just roll off my tongue, but we almost, what was it? Was it 37% increase in attendees? And we did really well. It was a great year last year. It was a huge hit. We're even bigger this year.
Yeah.
So I know that this is being recorded on September 3rd, but where our sales are now was basically, we're doing great. We're probably going to sell out, and it'll be before, the last 2 weeks. We're in the last 2 events. It was the last 10 days when we got 80% of our attendees buying tickets. So at this point, we have far less than 50% left. So.
Yeah. And that's great. And this will come out on, let's see, today we're recording on Labor Day, right? So I think it'll be the 15th or 16th. It'll be next Friday when this comes out, but there'll still be 2 weeks because the show comes out, or the festival is on the 30th on Friday. There's events that go on, but then the actual Bourbon on the Banks will be on Saturday the 1st. Is that right? October 1st? Yeah. So there'll be a lot of things obviously going on, and we can talk some more about that in the next segment, talk about what's going on, all the different events that go on. So let's jump back real quick. Matt, let's talk about the Wilderness Trail Rye though that we're drinking, man. Can you talk about what you get on the palate and finish on this one?
Mark, I would love to.
Thank you.
think Diane hit this one right on. This is cinnamon. I get a lot of cinnamon, a lot of heat. There's a lot of sweetness too. It's almost like those cinnamon gummy bears is kind of the,
oh yeah.
I pick up a lot of that because there's sweetness, there's the heat from the cinnamon. Then it lends into some little bit of a peppercorn, some subtle sweetness. And actually, I think this was 4 years, 9 months. There's a little bit of oak coming down the line too. I think it's starting to show some of the age coming through with that. So probably a real nice high quality barrel was used on this one, I'm going to guess, because I get a fair amount of oak, nice maturity at the end, and just a nice lingering aroma in the mouth. Good oily coating. So nice cerebral finish. Really leaves you thinking about it and enjoying it.
Very nice. I love when you say cerebral finish, Matt. Amzie, you're shaking your head and smacking your lips. So what do you think?
Well, one thing, Wilderness Trail Rye. So I'm a very big rye fan, and I think their rye in general is one of the best readily available ryes out there.
Yeah.
And one thing is, even though it is I'll say a lower rye mash bill for some ryes, at 60-something%. I think their rye whiskey never leaves a doubt that it is rye whiskey, and that's something I enjoy from it. I absolutely love their rye, and I like this one. And I think some of the sweetness, I wonder if that is the lower proof, kind of coming out in this, is to help getting a little sweetness from the barrel. I do agree that
Sure.
I noticed some oak in there. And since I have the barrel, by the way, this is a number 4 char independent stave barrel. Is
Okay.
what they used.
Mm-hmm.
I love that they put all the information on their labels so
Yeah.
you can see that.
They're so transparent. I love it.
Yeah, nothing to
Yeah.
hide behind. Just great product.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they've stopped putting their mash bill on there, but I think that was more of a TTB. That was the regulators,
Yeah.
I think, don't like it when you have the exact mash bill on
Gotcha.
there, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, no doubt. That's kind of weird. I did not realize that they had done that. So interesting. Rene, what about you? What do you think in terms
Well,
of the palate and the finish?
I'm picking up on the palate, the sweetness that you all mentioned, and I'm thinking that could also be because of the corn content for a rye whiskey. So I like the spice and the sweetness mixed, and I do get a little bit of cinnamon that you all are experiencing as well. Probably mine suggestion there, but it's really, really tasty. And I wanted to mention one thing about these 3 whiskeys that we chose tonight. We chose all 3 of them because they're all good long-term participants in Bourbon on the Bank. So all 3 of these distilleries are going to be participating this year and have participated in the past.
Okay. That's good. That's good to know. So Diane, what about you? What do you pick up on the palate on
I'm
this
going to
one?
stick with my cinnamon, and I do agree with oak. And
Yeah.
the sweetness isn't really profound to me at all. And normally, I'm really sensitive to sweet, but I guess I would almost say it's like a cinnamon gummy bear. The cinnamon bears or whatever they are. So it's when you taste one of those,
Yeah.
it's the cinnamon that really explodes, but there's that sweetness too. And then there's the lingering
sweetness,
heat
yeah.
and the Kentucky hug that it follows up with, which I love about ryes. They give the best hug.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, it's got some similarities to a bourbon. But with the rye, the spiciness of the rye that comes through at that 30, I think it's 33. Yeah. 56% rye. I'm sorry. So, you get that rye spice that comes through, and then you get the high corn content that gives that sweetness. That number 4 barrel char, just a nice combination that gives you that sweetness, the sweetness, but that spiciness at the same time. So really, really enjoy that one. So Matt, we've talked about fixture mixture. So what do you think, man? Is this one is this a fixture, or is this one you do a mixture?
Oh, this is great. This is unlike any of the Wilderness Trail single barrel ryes that I've had. Oftentimes with their ryes, I'll get a lot of herbs, a lot of dill, mint, kind of like pickling spices. But this one just really brings the heat. Got that nice cinnamon, sweetness with it, and then a good compliment from the oak. This one is very different from any of the single barrel ryes from Wilderness Trail I've had. This is fixture all the way. This is definitely a staple. And for the lower proof, the 100 proof, I think it drinks quite a bit warmer.
I agree 100%, Matt. This drinks a lot hotter than 100% or 100 proof, but it's enjoyable, and it is different than the other ryes that I've had. So I would definitely pick this one up. So I'm going to agree with you, Matt. This is a fixture. I would put this one on the bar and keep it. So, all right, guys, we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with the Bourbon on the Banks crew in just a minute.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they called Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
Spirits of French Lick crafts their spirits using only the finest agricultural product that has defined character, following their motto, respect the grain. They lead the way in representing the quality of the Hoosier artisan distilling process while paying tribute to its inseparable past. By implementing best practices from those early times, combined with modern touches, Spirits of French Lick has created a truly unique place in the industry. Spirits of French Lick products are distributed throughout Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, and can also be purchased online through Sealbox at sealbox.com. Visit spiritsofFrenchlick.com to learn more information, and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, everybody. Welcome back for round 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, live tonight in the Bourbon Life Studios, is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing good. I think for as long as we've taken away from recording here, we're doing all right ourselves, right? We dusted off the cobwebs. Yeah. I'm talking into the right side of the microphone. I think we're doing okay.
You're doing a great job. The Bourbon Life Studios has resurrected itself, and we're doing well tonight.
Yeah, it's always great to be back with the prolific host of the Bourbon Life Podcast, yourself here, Mark.
the podfather.
That's right. You are.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. S. Philip would call me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, Matt, tell everybody who we have with us tonight.
That's right. As happy as we are to be back, we're even more happy to have our guests with us. We've got a couple of board members from the Bourbon on the Banks Festival, Rene and Amzie Wenning, and also the festival director, Diane Strong. And they are back for round number 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. So welcome
back.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thank you for staying.
Thanks for putting up with my noisy microphone earlier.
No, we're thrilled to have you on here, Diane. We appreciate you guys. You get joining us, and like I said earlier in the podcast, thanks for driving those samples over today. I really appreciate that. So we could share some samples and taste them. And Amzie, we were talking offline a few minutes ago when we took a break about the Wilderness Trail, and you wanted to share some information about that. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So go ahead and share what you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, after we the pick came in, we actually had Dr. Heist, Pat Heist, come and talk to the Frankfort Bourbon Society, and that was one thing we did ask was, the proof and why it was so low. Was it a lower entry proof? Because early on, I think they did some more experimentation.
Sure.
I know the first rye we ever picked from them was 120 proof. So this was quite a bit different, and he said what it was early on, their production was much lower than it is now. Now, they're just pumping out, whiskey like crazy. And so they would buy like 6 months of barrels at a time. And so, a week or two before they were going to use a barrel, they would fill it with water. And he said the barrel probably soaked up a bunch of water. And so if they put it in the barrel at something like 105, he said it probably dropped to 95 proof or something after they put it in the barrel because of the water in there. And so then it actually has come back up to, 101, wherever it is now. So,
right. Okay.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of interesting on why it was so, why the proof's so low on that.
And it's great. I mean, you say Dr. Pat, and if people they don't know who Dr. Pat is, I mean, just people need to check him out, because the first time I really saw Dr. Pat was at the barbecue festival in Danville, and I walked in, and he's up on stage singing with his heavy metal hard rock band, because he is a lead singer of a heavy metal band. He's got this big long beard. And so Dr. Pat is quite an interesting guy. Not only does he know a ton about yeast and about bourbon production, but he knows about 1990s and 2000s heavy metal hard rock. So he's a good guy to know. So, but that's great. I appreciate you sharing that. So, all right. So round 2 here, we've got something poured up from one of our favorite distilleries, one of our sponsors of the podcast, Spirits of French Lick. We got the Lee W. Sinclair. It's a single barrel pick from the Frankfort Bourbon Society. So who wants to tell us a little bit about that one?
What do you want? Some
Amzie, I'm thinking
some notes on this one?
Yeah. Well, no, just tell us about, do you know what this is? I mean, I've got some information in terms of the proof and stuff. Do you know the mash bill on this one, or?
That's another one I don't recall. It is a, it is a 4 grain. I know that.
Okay. Sure.
I'm trying to think. They used to have the mash bill on here, but it is corn, wheat, oats, and barley. I want to see if I could quickly find that.
No.
Yeah, it is 60% corn, 17% wheat, 13% oats, and 10% caramel malt.
Okay.
And then, of course, at Spirits of French Lick also, I know we talked about barrel earlier, they do everything in a number 2 char, so a much lighter char than a lot of your other distilleries use.
Yeah. And this one is 105.8 proof, I think, and was it 4 years, at least 4 years old, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Alan Bishop up there is the master distiller, is a great guy. I mean, you guys know, I mean, I'm sure you know Amzie, you know him. You've dealt with him in terms of doing the barrel pick. We've had him on the show. We've not had a lot of repeat guests, and you 3 are probably maybe our 6th or 7th repeat guest in the 135 episodes that we've done. So we don't repeat guests a lot, but Alan has been on the show twice. We really appreciate him and love what he does. He's just a very interesting person and knows a lot about distilling. It's a lot of fun to have him on the show.
Yeah, it is. And having Alan on the show is kind of like, all right, Alan, here are the keys. You're driving. Just let us know when we're supposed to say something. You just turn it over to Alan and let him rip. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think he has a passion for distilling like few others have, and a lot of knowledge because of that.
Sure. And if you follow him on Instagram, if you don't, you need to. But if you need to follow him on Instagram and just check him out, because what he does, the information he provides, the passion he has for distilling in general, it's really cool. And we really appreciate Alan and Spirits of French Lick and all they do for us. So let's talk about this Lee W. Sinclair. Matt, what are you picking up in terms of the nose on this one?
It's got a real malty, roasty nose on it. I'm picking up a lot of the malt coming across, like this toffee kind of like funky, malty, roasted nose to it. I really, really quite enjoy it. I think actually the oats sort of bring across like a nice grain aroma as well in there. I wish, I don't know if I'm picking up too much from the wheat, but there is like a subtle wheat bread, maybe like slight, like animal cracker type kind of nose to it, where it's like a little like some sort of a wafery type animal cracker or something like that, but really inviting. I like the malt. The caramel malt really brings some funk to this. It's nice.
Yeah, it is different, and it is a 4 grain, like Amzie said. So it's different, and it's not rye.
Mm-hmm.
It's oats. It's wheat and oats. So it's something completely different than what I think people would expect. Amzie, what do you think in terms of the nose on this one?
So, I feel like a lot of times I'm not very good at these descriptors, but this one at first, when I nosed it, I just thought it was a very soft, smell.
Sure.
Unlike the strong rye that we just smelled a minute ago. And then honestly, what popped in my mind, I know you said toffee. For me, it was maybe like a pecan praline or something like that. Or like a honey bun or something. There's like a caramel sweet note to it that I do think maybe comes from that caramel malt.
Gotcha. Rene, how about you?
Well,
oh, wait a second. We said we weren't going to talk about that. I'm so sorry, man. Unfortunately, Rene was so kind and he sampled out his entire bottle to everybody, and he does not have a sample. So
Rene, I'll tell you what it tastes like.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
Okay.
Damn. I knew better.
I'm flashing back to my childhood, just smelling this, and I really remember the instant oatmeal where you can get the different flavors. My favorite used to be the cinnamon brown sugar, I think it's called. And that's what I'm getting, a little tiny bit of cinnamon, lots of brown sugar, lots of oatmeal. This one smells really sweet to me.
Yeah, I can see that. And again, like I think Rene said it earlier, something about the power of suggestion, but I agree. I can see what you're saying there, Diane, in terms of that cinnamon brown sugar sweetness coming through, that spiciness a little bit from the cinnamon, the sweetness from brown sugar, but that oat coming through in terms of an oatmeal. Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense. So I agree with you on that one. And again, Alan, I gotta give props to Alan because he just does some really weird stuff, and put some really, really interesting grains together, and always comes out with some really, really cool products. So, kudos to him, and good job for you guys, Frankfort, Bourbon Society, picking it out. So let's talk about the event, the Bourbon on the Banks. Let's talk about what's going on with everything. So you got a lot of different events that are actually part of the entire event. So you got things going on Friday, you got things going on Saturday, October 1st. So let's talk about what's going on Friday. So, Diane, do you want to jump in and tell us what all you have going on there?
Well, sure. Our big event on Friday is the VIP. It's actually not that big. It's very limited. So much so that as we speak, we've got, I believe, either 4 or 6 tickets left is all. So I am 100% sure that by the time this airs, those will be gone. And it's no wonder we decided to feature women in the industry this year, and we have got a phenomenal lineup of women who are going to be there and able to mingle and interact with the guests. So, in our lineup of great auction items, we have a barrel pick of E.H. Taylor, and Rene can elaborate on what that is like, but it's we have people flying from all over the country for this event. Matter of fact, when it first aired that we were having the event and the E.H. Taylor barrel pick, we had, I can't remember I think 23 states were recognized for the first 50 tickets we sold. I mean, they're coming from all over. It's kind of exciting. We've got some liquor stores that have pulled money together to try to come in and bid on it. And so it's going to be a pretty fun auction to be a part of. And then, part of the thing with Bourbon on the Banks is we like to give back to the community. And that's part of the city is a huge, they just take care of us, and they provide us with so much as far as security and, the infrastructure and making sure that we've got signage and emergency management helping. But one thing that they do ask is that we do something that's available for our community for free. And that's where Bourbon Street on Broadway came in, which is that first event that I hosted. And so that takes place on Friday from 6 until 10:30. And it kicks off with Kentucky State University Marching Band, which is, if you've never heard them or seen them perform, it is a huge treat. And it's not super easy to get them because they've got a busy schedule. And it takes 5 school buses to get them there. And it takes, there's 130 adult kids in that band. And it takes, Jimmy John's is going to feed them this year for me, which is awesome. Express Bank is the sponsor for Bourbon Street on Broadway. Help make all that stuff happen. Like I said before, it's fire and it's performers and circus and music and all kinds of good stuff going on. And then we also have the, I don't know what's going on my Instagram. It's blown up. Can you guys hear that? Can you hear that in the background? Oh, thank God.
I don't hear it.
Okay. Well, it's not mine. It's the Bourbon on the Banks.
There you go. But that's a good problem to have, right? So Bourbon on the Banks,
distracting.
The Instagram is blowing up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
so
a good
OH
thing.
Ingram is sponsoring the pub stroll. That also goes on Friday. That's free to participate in. You just go to all the participating bars and restaurants, and in our mixed district, which you can carry your drink from place to place all throughout the mixed district downtown. And you get a little signature cocktail made with OH Ingram River Aged whiskey, and take a selfie, have a chance to win some tickets to next year's event. It's a good time.
Yeah, that sounds like so let me ask you this, Diane, as you're putting all this together, because you're in downtown Frankfort, and it's Frankfurt's the capital of the state of Kentucky. The legislators aren't in session at that point in time. But I mean, did you have a hard time, or was there any difficulty trying to put all that together and get people on board to support what you guys are going to do? Did you have any issues, any backlash, or any pushback on that?
I feel very fortunate. I've not heard any negative. The community and the city are so supportive. It's been really overwhelming, and that's where our volunteers come from, and it's like a huge community of people that all are just cheerleaders behind this event and all of the events that go along with it. They're very, we shut down streets, and they have to reroute themselves.
Yeah.
They can't get home the way they normally do, and we hear very little negative out of it.
Good. And that's good, because I mean, Frankfort, it's not a huge community. It's not a huge town. It's not a huge city. So it takes a lot of time and effort to shut things down and shut streets down and do things. So, I mean, that's good that you've not faced any type of negative backlash or any community pushback on what you're doing there. So, and it's a great thing. I mean, you got one of the biggest distilleries in the world there, Buffalo Trace. So I would hope that people would embrace that and would love the fact that you're doing a festival that's focused on all the different distilleries there. So speaking of which, in terms of the people that are the groups and things that are going to be at the Bourbon on the Banks, are they Kentucky distilleries, or who all will be involved with that?
We have in-state and out-of-state distilleries. We actually pride ourselves on having quite a load of out-of-state distilleries. Exactly how many, I'm not sure. I think it's right around 20. This year we've got, I believe we're at 60 distilleries that have committed to coming. That includes just a handful of breweries and wineries and some liqueurs. So you're probably looking at a solid 50 distilleries coming. Lots to choose from.
That sounds great. Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. No doubt about that. So, Matt, let's jump back over to the whiskey that we're drinking here, this Lee Sinclair. So what do you pick up in terms of the palate on this one?
It's got a sweetness right on the front of the palate. And then to me, I pick up a lot of the malt comes through kind of cereal grain like. It's for some reason I keep coming back to like Honey Nut Cheerios. Kind of has like that almond extract, the sweet honey coming through.
I think we lost Matt
with it. But it's great. It's different. It's got that funk a little bit too coming through. There's just like something I can't put my finger on, but it's really nice. I really, really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amzie, what about you? I'm going to jump to you real quick.
So, I think one thing, if you think about the motto there at Spirits of French Lick, respect the grain. And I think,
right.
Alan does try and showcase the grain in there. So I do get kind of that, I agree, that kind of malty sweetness. I get a lot of like caramel, vanilla, kind of graham cracker thing to it. Just for Alan, I wish I could say I tasted marzipan in there, but I don't know if I really even know what marzipan tastes like. But, so it could be in there. But.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure he would love to hear that. I may just have to send him a message and say, "Hey, guess what? Tonight we picked up on marzipan on your Lee Sinclair." Diane, what about you? Anything you want to add to that in terms of tasting?
Not really. I just there's just like a warmth that I can't seem to nail the taste of it. I don't know. I'm failing now on this. I think it's my oatmeal is kind of drifted away a little bit. It's not, the sweetness doesn't come through as much when you actually taste it, on my palate anyway. A lot more in the back of the palate than the middle. So yeah.
Sure. And this one's almost 106 proof. So I think, nosing it, I don't think it came across quite that high, but tasting it, I think it does kind of come across as a higher proof. I don't know, Matt, what do you think?
I think it hits right in where it should be. At 106, it's certainly not like burning out my palate, but at the same time, I know that I'm drinking a little something there.
Yeah, but on the nose, on the nose, I really didn't pick up anything that would indicate this is a higher proof.
No, certainly not. It's the nose has a lot of flavor, a lot of aroma, but any alcohol or ethanol or heat is certainly not one of them. I didn't think.
Amzie, you're shaking your head. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And I'm also sitting here thinking maybe almost a little honey I get in there too. To go with some of the other stuff. And, I think part of what's unique here too, that I really appreciate, what Alan does is that, having been more of a Scotch drinker at one point in my life, it was, it's hard to find two Scotches that taste alike, or whether it's an Ela Scotch or a Highland Scotch or whatever, very different styles. And we have tended to, in this country, have a lot of bourbons be very similar. And I like that he's kind of pushing the envelope and kind of making a different regional style of bourbon. And part of that I think might be how he uses two yeast strains. The first one for a few days to bring out the grain more, and then puts in a more fruity high ester yeast. It's just such a different style. I love it. And the 2-char and the lower entry proof, it just creates something that is very different, but very well made and very enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree with that. Alan's just, I think everything he puts out up there is just, I've always enjoyed everything he does. Never had anything bad from those guys. So, and appreciate their support as well. Like I said, because they sponsor the podcast, but that's not why we love them necessarily. I mean, it's just, it's great. Everything that Alan does, he's kind of a mad scientist. I mean, the experimentation, and I love his Instagram site.
He is an alchemist, as he likes to say.
He is. That's right. The Real Alchemist, right? I think that's his Instagram handle, is The Real Alchemist. So he is. I mean, he really experiments and does some really crazy things, but puts out some great products. There's no doubt about it. So, all right, we're at the end of round 2 here. So, Matt, I'm going to ask you, fixture or mixture on this one?
I think, again, we've got a fixture here. Sometimes I get worried with a higher malt, especially when it's got a different sort of malt. This is the caramel malt. We've tasted a lot of higher malts and different malts in the past that for me are just a little bit too coffee, a little too Kona, a little too drying. But this one brings a nice roasty flavor to it, a little bit of dark chocolate, but certainly not anything out of my wheelhouse. It's a hit.
All right. I agree with that 100%, Matt. So this one definitely is a fixture. I would put this on my bar, be happy to buy it, and be happy to share it with my friends. No doubt about it. So, all right, let's take a quick break, get away from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with the Bourbon on the Banks in just a few minutes.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, thankfully, tonight, he stuck around for round 3, my good friend, my co-host, Matt. Hey, Matt, how you doing out there in the family room basement area of the Bourbon Life Podcast?
Oh, the other wing of the Bourbon Life Studios. I'm doing great, Mark. How are you in the studio proper?
In the closed in the bunker, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, man. I'm doing great. I'm glad you're over here, man. You know, even though we're not necessarily together, we're in the same location, and it's good to be together, man. It's good to be doing a show again.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like it's been forever. I don't know why, but it just seems like a long time, Matt.
It has been. It's been too long, but you know what? We're back, and we're here. We're in September of 2022.
Crazy.
So this is
crazy
Bourbon
how
Heritage Month. So
yes, exactly right, man. Which is great. I love Bourbon Heritage Month because there's so many releases, so many fun things, festivals, everything going on, man. So this is great. So tell everybody who we have with us tonight, Matt.
Absolutely. We have, speaking of festivals, we've got the crew from Bourbon on the Banks in Frankfort, Kentucky. So we have Rene True and Amzie Wenning, board members, and also board members of the Frankfort Bourbon Society, and the festival director, Diane Strong. And they are back again for round number 3. And we have got something special poured up. We're going back to rye. So what have we got poured up, everybody?
Well, I'll give you a little history on this. This is a Castle and Key rye. When the Frankfort Bourbon Society was formed in 2017, the first place we went to do a barrel pick was Castle and Key. Of course, they didn't have any whiskey, so we were drinking, tasting. You know, things have been in barrel for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, something like that. Hadn't been there long. And we set aside and put deposits down on 3 different whiskeys, barrels. And this is the first one that's been bottled. So we have 2 more that are still sitting over there. And we want to claim that we're the first private outside entity to have a single barrel from Castle and Key, but if we're not the first, we're in the top 2 or 3. So that's what you're drinking.
Very nice. And this is 112.9 proof, so this jumps up a little bit over what we had with the Lee Sinclair. And I think this one is a 4-year-old. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually the label's 4 years old. If you look at barrel and dump dates, we made 4.5 years by like a couple days. So
okay, gotcha. And the mash bill, do you guys have the mash bill on this one, or do you know? Okay, but it is a rye. So and their ryes are typically not super high ryes. I think they're in that 60% range, maybe something like that.
I agree. I think it's 60 something percent.
Yeah. All right. So again, you're looking at that a little bit of malted barley, some corn, but a rye that's not going to be like a 70 or 95, not 95.5 or something like that. Matt, what do you pick up in terms of the nose on this one, man?
It's got a real soft nose. Is the first thing I'm noticing right up the front. It doesn't jump out to me as a rye right away. I'm not picking up a lot of bold rye spice. I'm not picking up a ton of heat or cinnamon from it. But what I am really picking up is, to me, it's got a nose a lot like an orange creamsicle. Like this creamy citrus, kind of zesty, sweet, and almost nougaty type nose to it. Real inviting. I really, really quite like this nose.
See, I'm just going to say it to me, it smells really spicy, Matt.
Huh.
So it's like, it not that it smells 112 proof. I don't think it smells, there's no heat to it. You know, it doesn't like blow out my sinuses, but there is some spice to it. And more so than an orange creamsicle, but I respect your palate. So I'm not going to say you're wrong.
Hey,
Amzie, what about you? What do you think in terms of the nose on this one?
You know, I get a fruitiness from this, but for me, now also, you know, I've had this before, I've tasted it, so I kind of know what to expect.
Sure.
I tend to get some like dark fruits from this, some like raspberry, blackberry, cherry, something like that I get. I get that a little bit on the nose too. And I do think I get a little bit of spice on the nose too. But yeah, for the proof and everything, this doesn't, you know, it doesn't kill you. I don't get a ton of ethanol from it.
Sure. Yeah, at 112 proof, I just, you know, I think when you say that to somebody, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is going to smell like, oh, you know, it's going to blow me up. But it really doesn't. So Diane, I see you nosing it over there. What do you think?
Well, the difference between nosing it with your mouth open and your mouth closed is like, I don't know, 180.
Nice.
So, but and you know, it's like spicy vanilla with my mouth closed, but when I open my mouth and smell it the way you're supposed to, it's chocolate. I really have a lot of chocolate that comes through.
Okay.
And I don't mean like a bitter chocolate. I mean like, you know, milk chocolate almost. Not quite that sweet though.
Okay.
So maybe like a cocoa. Just narrowing it down. But yeah, that's what comes through.
Sure. I gotcha. Rene, how about you?
Well, for a rye, I'm getting some sweetness here, but I'm also getting a nuttiness to it, like almost an almond. But I also pick up, I think what Matt said, some citrus with it too. And I have tasted this several times, maybe several bottles. So it's
maybe one or two or
it's
three.
It's
a good one.
one of my favorites.
It's a good one.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. That's funny. You know, Diane, I'm going to go back and your chocolate or cocoa note. I can pick that out when you said that, and it could be the power of suggestion. But as I'm nosing it, I started picking that out as well. So that's a good call. So
Getting better at this.
yeah. All right. So let's talk about, we talked about Friday night, the September 30th, all the events going on downtown, everything you have going on. So let's talk about the actual event on October 1st, right? And that's at, what's it called?
Riverview Park.
Yeah. Riverview Park,
Yep.
right? In Frankfort.
So, you know, the whole concept is you buy a ticket, it gets you in, and once you get in, you have your samples. People always say, do the samples cost more? No. In the past, we've given everyone tickets. We've never had a complaint ever that people did not get enough samples of bourbon. We choose the amount of.
I don't want to cut you off, but I'm going to cut you off and just say I was there last year and I had plenty of samples of bourbon yes, I agree 100%. No one will go home thirsty. All right.
So yeah. And this year we released some early access tickets. Those are sold out. They've been sold out for quite a while. Those people get in at 1:00. Everybody else gets in at 2:00. And so it gives you access to the event. Like I said, we've got 50 distilleries, plus we've got some breweries, wineries, some liqueurs. We've got lots of bourbon societies joining us this year, which I'm excited about. One of the things that we got for feedback was there wasn't enough places to sit down and relax for a minute. Of course there is in the food court, but as you're strolling around, you know, if you're going to stay the whole time, that's a long time to be on your feet. So some of the bourbon societies are bringing some lounges, so you can go in, sip on your sample, and they are all going to have interactive things for the attendees. That's one thing that I ask, something that you're educating them or you're letting them learn something. They can relax, take a break before they go at it again. So that's
Sure.
exciting. We also have a lot of, not a lot, but we have a very selective number of merchandisers that are there, and all of the things that they are selling are bourbon related. So last year, I
Okay.
think we had 12, and one of the things on our feedback was we want more merchandisers there. So I think we've got 19 this year. I'm really excited about them. So you
Okay.
can do a little shopping, or your spouse or husband can do some shopping while you're enjoying your bourbon.
Sure. And that makes sense because, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, as a bourbon drinker, you don't want to go to a bourbon festival and feel like you're going to a flea market or going to a festival where it's just a bunch of people selling their
Exactly.
wares, you know? And you guys, last year, it wasn't like that at all. It was great because you had so many distilleries there. You had so many, providers, whatever you want to call them, the different people that were there that had bourbon samples. But you also had, like, I'm going to give a shout out to Mike and those guys over at the Bourbon Road, because they did a great job. They set up their whole tent. They had a nice big, I mean, it was great.
And he'll be back, of course.
Cause I spent time in their tent. It was great. They were selling merchandise, but they also had some samples you could taste, and just a nice place you could relax and sit down. So it was a lot of fun. I mean, it wasn't just people selling stuff. It was distilleries. It was a few of the retailers that were selling bourbon related things, but also bourbon merchandisers, bourbon brands, bourbon people that are related to the bourbon industry doing some things like podcasters and stuff. So it was great. So you had a good mix of people.
Absolutely. And none of our merchandisers sell the same thing. They don't overlap. It's all very unique and very individual. So then, of course, Basement Brick House will be back, and it's Bourbon Night will be back.
Right.
We've got Whiskey and Whitetails that will be doing a live podcast. I think they're going to be interviewing some people from the White Oak Initiative, which is one of our beneficiaries this year. So lots of stuff going on. Of course, that goes till. Go ahead.
So talk about your beneficiaries. So who's going to benefit? What do you have set up for that?
So we have the KSU scholarships is back. If a student wants to go into the distilling program at Kentucky State University, we have scholarships for them. But we also have scholarships for anyone in Franklin County that wants to go to any distillation or college level program that's out there. So the scholarships is a big one. We also are doing the White Oak Initiative this year, which we're very proud to be a part of that. I think we're in good company there too. And then the Bluegrass Community Fund, which is a local fund that allows us to set money aside for projects that directly benefit the residents of downtown Frankfort and anybody who visits downtown Frankfort, including our attendees next year.
That's great. I mean, it's wonderful what you guys are doing. So that's really cool that you've got that set up. And again, I was there last year and absolutely loved it. And it's great because, 2 years ago, COVID kind of shut everything down. So you guys you've come back strong last year, and this year you're coming back even stronger. It sounds like. So do you guys want to talk about that in terms of what happened in terms of COVID versus where you are now?
Well, we canceled in 2020. So coming back last year after taking a break and increasing the attendees by 35% or whatever it was, and doing so well, I think that was awesome. We were thrilled with the comeback that we made.
Good. Yeah, no doubt. So this year you're also going to be you've got your own single barrel pick, I believe. Is that correct?
Tell them about it, Amzie.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Amzie. Throw it
And
to you,
so,
Amzie.
so back when Dr. Pat did come talk to the Frankfort Bourbon Society, I threw the idea out there about us doing a barrel pick. And, could we do this? His exact words, I believe, were, well, I don't see why we can't. And so then it was just kind of getting things scheduled, and I really thought about them because if you look at the recipients, the white, is it the White Oak Project? I want to say that right. The
Yes.
scholarship for someone in, going to a distilling program or fermentation program, they have firm solutions, and I felt like it really
Right.
tied in with them and what they're doing. And so we actually just did the barrel pick last week. It was myself, since we've already talked about him. Alan Bishop was there. We also had Hunter Coffee from Three Boys Distillery here in Frankfort. John Wadle from, he's the single barrel curator at Peerless. Also one of the co-owners of Stave and Bean Coffee, who does barrel-aged coffee. And then we had Kelly Tennille. Kelly used to be distiller at Hartfield and Company. She is now distilling botanical spirits, gin and other things over at Three Boys here in Frankfort. She's has been a contestant on Moonshiner's Master Distiller. And so we went down, and Macaulay had really rolled out some good barrels for us. And
Yeah, he's a great dude. He's
he is.
He's such a good guy.
And so we tried all of their mash bills. We tried the wheated bourbon. We did the high rye bourbon. We did a rye whiskey. And so going through this and kind of had them picked out, we did them blind. We didn't want to know which was which. And Macaulay then said, well, also if your two favorites happen to be a wheated bourbon and a high rye bourbon, we could try a blend between those and see if we like it. And so our two favorites happen to be a wheated bourbon and a high rye. We really loved the blend. To say I'm excited about it would be an understatement. I think it may be one of my favorite things I've ever picked.
Okay.
It came through the wheated especially was this barrel that had a ton of vanilla, like a buttery note, and then someone actually said something about cake batter, and I think that was it. It had a really strong like cake batter, very sweet note to it. The high rye, then when we blended it, just added this little extra bit of character to it. So it's a pretty unique offering. The 4-grain isn't something they normally do, but they're allowing us to do it. Just for a good cause. So can't say enough about them working with us on this.
So Amzie, how is that's going to be available at the event then?
Yes, Diane. I'm making this
Diane.
to Diane. I don't know
or Diane. That's going to be available.
It will be available at the event, whether it's going to be in our merchandise tent or it's going to be in Capital Cellars tent. They're a local liquor store who is going to be selling bottles. I'm not sure, but it'll be there, and we'll make sure you know where it's at in advance.
Sure. So let's talk about that in terms of and I know things have changed in terms of what the legislature in Kentucky has allowed and what things have passed and whatnot. Can people buy bottles at the event? Not just your single barrel pick, but can they buy other bottles? Or
yes. So any distillery who holds a Kentucky distillery license is allowed to sell bottles at a festival, and they will be allowed to at ours. If you're an out-of-state distillery, you can't legally sell here, but what they can do, along with the 500, the House Bill 500, is the ability for a local liquor store who holds a liquor license in the county where the festival is, they can sell bottles at an event.
Right.
So Capital Cellars will have a tent, and they are going to acquire the out-of-state bottles through a distributor and sell them at the tent.
Sure. Okay. Good. So people can buy bottles from different distilleries. Whatever you taste and like at the event, you'll be able to buy bottles, basically. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that's good to know. And I know that's kind of something that's changed in the last year. So that's good to know that that's happened. So, all right, Matt, let's jump back over to the to what we're drinking, man. What do you think about this Castle and Key Restoration Rye in terms of the palate?
On the palate with this one, anything that I missed on the nose as far as rye spice goes is definitely on the palate. This is spicy for me. Right up front, there's just a touch of sweetness right on the tip of the tongue, and then it brings the heat. It brings the spice. I get a lot of peppercorn. I get a lot of nutmeg. The baking spices are coming through, kind of a hot cinnamon, and kind of that sweeter cinnamon that Diane and I were touching on earlier was sort of that like cinnamon gummy bear, but it really brings the heat with this one. All of those big, bold rye spices. And then to echo what Diane was saying on the nose where she picked up chocolate, on the finish of this one, I get a really nice dark cocoa note on it that's got this really nice, not overly drying, but just a nice heat and like this good cocoa flavor at the very end. It's really, really enjoyable. I do have to say, I'm really liking it.
Nice. Amzie, what about you?
So yeah, I love the assertiveness of the rye on this one, being a big rye fan. And, that's something that a lot of their previous rye releases, the rye was a little underwhelming for me. So I really like the rye on this one.
Yeah.
And then I do still kind of get a little bit of that kind of dark fruit note on the finish for me.
Gotcha. Rene, how about you?
Well, for 112 proof, it is not overpowering. It doesn't taste like 112 proof. I do get a hot, spicy rye taste to it with a bit of sweetness to it, which is just perfect for my palate. So that's one of my go-tos. So very nice. Enjoyable.
Nice. Diane, how about you?
I'm it's kind of like what you could smell, but even better. And it's a warmth, it just spreads all over your mouth, your entire palate. The chocolate comes back, and then I want to say just a tiny little bit of graham cracker, maybe. There's just something. At first, I was thinking like a s'more, but like not sweet at all. But if you could put s'more in a non-sweet category, that's what I'm getting. 'Cause something like that smokiness probably is what.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I get some black tea off of this, not drying or anything, but on the finish, I get a little bit of a kind of a black tea kind of a flavor. I don't know if any of you guys pick that up, Matt or Amzie, if you guys detect that or not, if it's just me, but that could just be me.
Now that you mention it, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, guys. So we have reached the end of round 3. So before we wrap it up, so anything you want to share, anything you want to say before we close it out here? Diane, how about you?
I should have mentioned also that after Bourbon on the Banks on Saturday, we have Goodwood After Party, and we have a live band this year. We've got Taylor Hughes, who is she's on the radio, and she's awesome. And then also Audra Laughlin, who is season 6 of The Voice finalist. They're both going to be there, and they're going to be putting on a great show, so the party will keep going. And also big shout out to Community Trust Bank, who is our title sponsor for the entire event. And without them, this probably couldn't happen. Sure. It's the 3rd year they've supported us.
Thank you.
So.
All right, Amzie. Oh, very nice. Amzie, how about you? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I forgot that's going to be kind of different. We're going to try and turn that the barrel around quickly from that barrel pick. Get that to Stave and Bean coffee. They're going to try and quickly barrel age some coffee in it and have that available at the festival as well.
Nice.
The other thing I would just say is this is a truly fun and enjoyable festival. I think if anyone comes out, they are going to have a great time and want to come back. Every year I think about stepping down off the board so I can go and actually enjoy the festival. But but I do appreciate the potential this festival has to serve our community. And so I keep doing it, but one of these days, man, I'm going to sneak away and enjoy the festival a little bit.
I'd prefer it if you wouldn't, Amzie.
We
appreciate you on the board, and Rene too. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Rene, what about you? Anything you want to add?
We listened to our surveys, and we surveyed not just the attendees, but the vendors, the distillers, the volunteers. And so this is an extended format, time-wise. As Diane mentioned, there's an early access that I think is sold out now. But we're going to finish up earlier so that people are not in the dark. And if you weren't there last year, but you were there the first year and you didn't get anything to eat, that is not a problem. We have a food court. We will have several food vendors there. So it's 2019 was awesome and 2021 was awesome, but 2022 is going to be outstanding.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm excited for you guys, and I'm excited for the event, and I'm really looking forward to being there and celebrating and just having a great time with everybody that's there. Matt, before we wrap it up, anything you want to add?
Can't wait for it. So excited. I didn't make it to this one last year, but I sure hope to be there this year. Looking absolutely forward to it.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and for sharing all the information about the Bourbon on the Banks. Really looking forward to being there. September 30th, Friday night. And then obviously the festival itself on Saturday, the 1st of October. They're in Frankfort. It's going to be a great time and really looking forward to being there. And so we want to thank all of our sponsors. And again, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by VisitLEX. We appreciate VisitLEX, their sponsorship and everything they do for us. And all of our other sponsors, we appreciate all their support. Thank you all for listening, and we appreciate everything you do for us. If you have any questions or you want to contact us, please feel free to follow us on Instagram or Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can reach out to us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. Send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. We'd appreciate that. And with that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the Bourbon Life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the Bourbon Life.